ask you this question because I want to jump back in the flow, right? To Fabian, and then we can go to Eric. In terms of, what do you think the future of the cannabis industry is going to look like in terms of, because like obviously from that clip that we just saw, there is very little information on like the true science behind water content, moisture content. Like, what do you guys foresee? Like, because everything's just been doing traditional hang dry, right? Where do you guys see the future of, of this going potentially?
Oh wow, there lies the multi-billion-dollar question, Luke. Um, I think right now we're at a transitional phase in this industry. I think that people saw the industry as a green rush, and it was flooded with money and inexperienced operators and people who were lacking the necessary experience to understand that at the end of the day, this is farming. This is an industry that has existed for quite some time, at least in terms of a business structure. And that it was inevitably only going to be a matter of time until pricing, right, for purposes of wholesale pricing on cannabis, um, dropped significantly to match what was actually being demanded and produced in growing markets. And as a result of that, I think we see an industry that's getting shaken up right now. And it's shaking up in a way that is it's forcing, right, the operators who can understand how to run on a lean manufacturing ideology, right, on the basis of understanding cost efficiency, being able to reduce cost of production, the things that almost any other business would have to, take into consideration to be able to be competitive. And I think that as this industry continues to move through this transition, people are going to reassess and reestablish where the baseline is as to what cannabis is valued at. We have index markets that already do that for tons of other types of industries from a commodities perspective, and that already exists in many different ways right now within cannabis. And so I think that as we see the operators who couldn't maintain efficiencies or couldn't adapt, right, to pricing going where it went across almost every industry in the US, other than the few select markets that were insulated due to limited licensing legal structures. Um, those groups that survive and make it through, it's going to because they're going to start looking for ways, right, to become more efficient if they haven't found them already. And the reality is, you do that generally two ways. You either reduce your labor costs or you bring in technology to help reduce that and create more efficiencies. And so I do think that as people are reevaluating this next transitional stage of cannabis right now and how they can remain competitive and how they can actually, be in a position to handle the ebbs and flows that come with this market, they're going to be looking towards technology. They're going to be looking towards things that are going to reduce costs, that are going to create efficiencies. And whether that be the gambit of things that I'm seeing within this industry, not just talking to what we do at CannaGenesis, right? Being able to decrease the significant amount of drying space that you need, decrease the time to market, preserve your product for a longer period of time, right? If you were to say this to anybody else in any other agricultural based business, that's exactly what they would all want. And so I think that inevitably there is going to be a change towards trying to adopt these new technologies to create more efficiencies. That doesn't mean that the hang dry is going to disappear, right? I think that that's something that's going to continue to exist. I think there are always going to be people who struggle to adapt or simply don't want to, and I think that we still need to have time for research and evidence to show and to provide a stronger basis to people as to what is the preferred or potentially, more improved way to dry. Not necessarily saying that it's better, but I feel like we're at that transitional phase. We're finally breaking free of some of these things that we've heavily attached ourselves to with respect to how this plant must be grown or how this industry must look. And there's more of a willingness now to accept that, you're going to have to give up your attachment to some of those ideas if you want to sustain your business here long term. And so I do envision a future where, hang drying, there will be somewhat less of it, not nearly as much. I think that, there are people out there who are looking for the efficiencies that come with what we do. And not just, again, for CannaGenesis, but I mean, I've seen hyperspectral artificial intelligence camera systems being sold now that can identify an issue from a pest standpoint before the human eye could see it. What person in a garden wouldn't want the ability to identify an infestation or a pest issue before anyone else could even notice it? And so I think that, there's many more examples to that one, that coming into this next iteration of this industry developing more than it already has, there are going to people who are going to continue to focus on fine tuning their businesses, because at the end of the day, that is what's necessary to operate, and not just survive, but also thrive. And I think that this industry first started off with people having an expectation of making all this money, and that fell pretty flat and bottomed out. And now I think that there's a time that, everyone's been able to reassess their expectations and make them a little bit more reasonable. And because of that, I think that that's just where we're going to continue to see this industry shift, is what's going to be reasonable to help this business sustain itself, to make money. And I believe that's going to be heavily focused on technology and creating more and more efficiencies within your business.
Really, really good point. That was really well said. I think you're absolutely right. I think that, traditions are important, but traditions, especially when we talk about processes, those things are broken down over time through efficiencies. And then how do you prove those efficiencies? Well, that's proven through science.